Everyone, welcome back to Touch Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do a Bath & Body Works White Barn Candle Company haul and first impressions overview. But before we get into that, if you are new here, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you'd like to learn more about what I do, why I do it, how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice.com. But for now, let's dig into this haul. So this haul is 7 3-wick candles and 1 lone single-wick candle purchased at the recent $13.95 candle sale that was an online-only sort of one-day flash sale. Luckily, I was able to do a BOPUS, the buy online pickup in store option, use the 20% off coupon, and so these candles, the 3 wicks at least, all worked out to $11.16 each, which, considering the current retail price on these candles and the lack of solid sales in the past month or so, this is a decent price. The other thing I will say is I did the buy online pickup in store. I don't love that option only because sometimes there are candles or products in stock that are not listed in stock on the website, or the reverse is true where, for instance, I put an order in for Paris Cafe and it got canceled, and maybe I would have purchased a different candle or done it online, but once it was canceled, I couldn't then use my 20% off coupon somewhere else. So just little annoyances like that, not a huge deal. But the other thing with the buy online pickup in-store option that's not my favorite is, I don't know if anyone else has found this to be true, but in the past year or so, I find that the wick placement in the 3-wick candles at Bath & Body Works is pretty messy. It used to be very consistent, never an issue, 3 evenly spaced out wicks, but very commonly now there will be 1 wick that is just further over, almost as if the machine that, wicked them was, instead of like going down like that, like either just went too far over on one side of the jar or one was a little bit off. And that just means that there's less likely to be a healthy burn performance. It could be a little bit too close to the glass, could get the glass too hot, just not ideal. And so I always check my wicks and just the wax in general before I make a purchase when I'm in store. Of course, the online pickup, same with online, you can't do that. So actually, when I went to pick these up at the register, the sales associate, I said, just so you know, I'm gonna look through the bag now before I leave just to see, because some of the wicks lately haven't been so, centered, and then I'd like to swap them out before I leave so we don't have to do some sort of return. And she just looked at me very confused and was like, okay. And I did it, and there was one that I did have to swap out, and she was still confused, and I set it by her cash wrap, and that was that. But yeah, it just is, one of those little annoyances. I'd rather be able to go through, pick what I want, and be done with it. I wish their sales were not online only. Silly, whatever, it's fine. There are 7 candles to go through. Let's talk through these. I know that's why you're here. So first up, we'll go through 2 that I've actually done in-depth sniff comparison reviews on in the past couple of weeks, but I wanted to buy backups of these because I really love both of these. So from the White Barn Neutrals Spring Collection, we have Pink, Lavender, and Espresso, as well as Sea Salt and Neroli. If you want to see in-depth sniff comparison reviews on both of these, you can see the Pink, Lavender, and Espresso here. And then just very recently, I did the Sea Salt and Neroli in-depth sniff comparison review. You can also see here. But these are just, they're so wonderful. They're 2 of my favorites from the at least early spring collections. Both being new scents, though this one somewhat similar to past, beach cabanas, suntans, that sort of thing. And this one very, very similar to your Lavender Marshmallow. Almost really a repackage with a twist of that one, with just a little hint of that sort of dark, roasty caramel / espresso note in there. Really love both of them. They're both great performers from the first one I have of each of these candles, so I really wanted to grab these backups. Honestly, I could see myself buying 1 or 2 more of each of these, because what I found myself to be doing lately with Bath & Body Works, though clearly I purchase, a fair number of candles, is each season there tend to be 3 or 4 that are really great, a ton that are okay, and then a fair amount that I just dislike. And so for review purposes, I take risks. I spread a little bit further out into these seem like they could be okay, see if I like them. I won't buy the ones I dislike, but the ones I'm, neutral to positive on, I might take a risk and try to be able to review and sometimes end up loving them. But really they're a core, 3 to 5 scents, it seems, each season that are the ones that I really, really like, that I would like to have backups of, 1 or 2 maximum, just so that if it doesn't come back, I can still keep burning them. And these 2 are in that category of really, really great, and definitely ones that are worth having in the collection, and having at least the 1 backup. I will say the collections, especially as we get through all of these, are so random. They're not at all cohesive. It really is just the visual marketing of these that are cohesive, because the fragrances that are part of them make almost no sense. That's fine. Gone are the days of really truly cohesive collections, but at least they do look nice and they smell good. It's just they don't make sense. For instance, this collection, the White Barn Neutral Spring. So these two new fragrances that are, very unrelated, alongside Fiji White Sands, returning summer scent, Dark Amber and Oud, let's call it sort of your luxury woody candle, Mahogany Coconut, summer version of Mahogany Teakwood, Cinnamon Spice Vanilla, pretty much year round at this point, your cinnamon sugar donut. And then you've got more interesting Aloe and Palm and Citron and Tonic. Aloe and Palm, nice. Don't know that I'll buy it. It leans a little bit sort of, not quite generic, but just not super exciting for me. I think there have been other fragrances very similar to that in the past at Bath & Body Works. And then the Citron and Tonic is almost repackaged with a twist of the Juniper and Gin, which I do like. I have 2 of those already. I really don't need another one that's so similar. And it doesn't really give me that puckering citron or the kind of bitter sparkling tonic that you would expect either from the name. So very weird, not cohesive, but as long as good fragrances come out, I'll keep buying. So then I move over to what is called the Soulflower Decor collection with Sea Salt and Balsam and Tea Rose. These are both repurchases from prior years for me. The other 2 that appear in this collection that I did not purchase and won't purchase are Amethyst Dreams and Sapphire Quartz. So kind of this airy, soulflower. It's not super clear what direction they're going in other than kind of this gemstones / minerals, a bit new agey. This looks like kind of just a watercolor, almost marble with some gold paint splatters that almost kind of gives a mercury glass impression there. I don't mind. I think it's pretty. It works. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for why it's called Soulflower Decor and why there are 2 truly just gemstone named fragrances with the Sapphire Quartz and the Amethyst Dreams, and then 2 random a rose and a sea salt balsam fragrance. So no cohesion, but I'll try not to keep picking on that. These candles really enjoy. The Tea Rose has notes of rose petals, white tea, and dewy greens. And this one is a repurchase for me. It is a fairly straightforward, light, fresh rose, though it's got some, I get my nose in there, it's got some depth to it. Now, if you're not familiar, so Tea Rose, this isn't necessarily, I think they're kind of playing with this a little bit here, where Tea Rose is just a type of rose. So it is basically a hybridized rose that has nothing to do necessarily with the fragrance. So roses are typically shrubs, kind of smaller to the ground, sometimes a smaller flower. A tea rose is a hybrid form of rose that tends to grow taller and bigger flowers, but they can be many colors and fragrances and, intensities of strength of fragrance. So tea rose itself isn't necessarily a specific rose fragrance. Hard to say what it means other than, okay, rose, straightforward. Then the fact that they throw in white tea, I love tea notes in fragrances. I'm not sure if they're doing that just because they want to use tea rose as the type of rose petal. I don't know, but that's fine. Sniffing it though, there's a little bit of powder to the rose. It's not as dark, deep as roses can be. It's sort of an early spring, bright. It's kind of that pink, not that, rose colors have different scents necessarily, but the visual that the scent brings you is kind of a fresh, light pink rose. Kind of sweet, almost leans towards like the peony. The green, there's a bit of a green undertone to it from the dewy greens, not as much as some other fragrances that have a heavy hit of greens. I wouldn't have necessarily called out dewy greens in here, like, your rosewater and ivy, I think has more greens to it. A little bit soapy, a little bit powdery, kind of an innocent rose, not super sensual, romantic, just a fresh, borderline powdery. And the tea, white tea, of course, is very light, so there's not much in the way of tea in here, like an astringency that you would typically get or a tannin from the tea. I could see it being in there, but I certainly would have not picked that out nose blind. Either way, it's a kind of straightforward, inoffensive springtime rose fragrance, which is a nice transition out of winter into spring. And then Sea Salt and Balsam. This one, I know, has had different names throughout the years. I didn't purchase it, I think, until last year, and I really liked it as a transition out of winter into spring. I love balsam. I think if they can use coconut in nearly every season, they should be able to find a way to use balsam in every single season, because it doesn't have to be a Christmas tree. It can be very much a lake in the mountain, and it's the dead of summer, and there is still a fir balsam tree there that's still going to have a fragrance to it, cooling and a bit camphorous, just really beautiful. And so I'm happy to see it in whether they want to call it a spring, a summer candle, whatever. Notes on this one are sparkling bergamot, white tea, and fresh sage. Interestingly enough, though balsam and sea salt are in the name, there is no balsam listed in the notes. Just goes to show you, don't always trust what's on the bottom here. There are 3 or 4 notes listed here typically on a fragrance that has 6 to 12 notes very easily in it. So, but clearly a balsam. You actually can see my in-depth sniff comparison review from last year here, but it's just somewhat aquatic, but not beachy necessarily. Could be a lake, honestly. The bergamot is not primary for me because it's not super zesty. There's a sparkling airiness to it, which bergamot can sometimes bring. Again, tea, I love in fragrance. I wouldn't necessarily pick that out. It's interesting that these both have white tea notes in them. Maybe it just brings a bit of that light sort of astringency, not quite herbal. And sage is interesting in here because I could see some sage, and I don't think it's like a clary sage that sometimes leans a little bit more, lavender, kind of flowery, soft. I think it is sort of your traditional garden sage, which adds a bit of that round warmth to it that really plays nicely with that balsam because they're both a little bit woody, green, camphoraceous, but still a fresh sweetness in here from, I guess, the bergamot and perhaps the tea. So I really think this is a beautiful fragrance. I'd love to see a play on this one, maybe like this combined when they do their blends collections, sea salt and balsam with, I'll have to think on it, but some other citrusy or ginger or cardamom or something to really add some additional spicy depth to this. Would love to see. So those two, again, are repurchases from past seasons, like the repurchases from this season on the first 2 in this video. Then we'll move over to 3 candles from 3 different collections. First one from what they're calling the Soulflower Transportive collection. This is Pink, Lilac, and Vanilla. The other ones in this collection are Under the Magnolia Tree, Flower Child, Eucalyptus Springs, and as an online exclusive, White Lavender Eucalyptus. This one makes a little bit more sense. These are at least all florals, I suppose. Under the Magnolia Tree, they used to have Southern Magnolia, which I loved. It was a test fragrance in 2012, 2013 as White Barn. It failed. It then came back, I think, as White Barn Summer, perhaps, and then 1 or 2 other times as Southern Magnolia. It was heady, it was warm, it was white floral, it was intense, it was sweet. There was some sort of dewy, like maybe peach nectar or pear blossom or something in there with magnolia. It was so nice, and Under the Magnolia Tree is not that. It's an okay fragrance, but there's just too much lemon or lemon zest in that to make it a true magnolia forward fragrance for me. Flower Child feels very kind of signature body care, Bath & Body Works for me, just a little too a drop of this, a drop of that, a drop of this, kind of been there, done that, like not really having a clear direction other than mass appeal. Eucalyptus Springs, sort of water eucalyptus, not one that's very exciting. I do love eucalyptus, but it's just, like I say about a lot of the recent blends of Bath & Body Works, just kind of mass appeal enough that leans a little bit generic, where it's not like, oh my gosh, this is so unique, this is so strong, this is so incredible. It's just fine. If someone had it lit in their house, I'd think, oh, it's nice, but I just don't care enough to purchase it. And White Lavender Eucalyptus, I think I purchased once, and if I remember correctly, it was maybe a little bit too astringent to want to purchase again. It just, again, didn't have enough nuance to it, which is sometimes the case with Bath & Body Works candles. However, this one, the Pink, Lilac, and Vanilla, is nice. Not my favorite, but in, grasping on for some sort of traditional spring fragrances, Bath & Body Works, I either want sort of your, market fruits, fresh, something more aromatherapeutic or spa-like, or a floral. And this is a pretty nice floral. So I like this more than their traditional fresh cut lilacs or fresh lilacs, though that is an exceedingly authentic lilac scent. It is pretty, it's nice, but also it's just, again, I want something a little bit more unique and different, though it is truly a beautiful fragrance. This lilac has a little bit more going on in it. I believe this one first came out maybe in the spring 2020 launch, which also had the honeysuckle and freesia, which I greatly preferred. To me, it was a perfect blend of sort of a sweet, cool freesia with your traditional honeysuckle, but not too heavy on the honeysuckle, which can be a little bit honeysuckle, and just sometimes can, I think, weigh down a fragrance, or just lean very heavy, like August summer, which also works. Dead of summer, honeysuckle nectar, great. But the honeysuckle freesia was a much lighter, let's say light pink. Again, I'm leaning light pink, thinking very early spring, March, April, Easter time. Beautiful fresh fragrance. And I think it only came out that first year in 2020. I don't think it came back last year or this year. It seems like pink lilac and vanilla kind of won out and continues to come back. I think a lot of people really like it, and I think it's nice. This is the first time I actually purchased it though. And notes on this one are fresh lilac bouquets, dewy greens, and vanilla blossom. It is your fresh lilac, kind of toned down on the powder of the floral and really like almost some of what I think a lot of people would like, almost like kind of like the musky freshness of a lilac is pulled back a bit. There's dewy greens. That's a bit of a stretch for me. There were dewy greens listed also in your tea rose, which I didn't really get dewy greens in there hardly at all. This one as well, not a lot in the greens. And I love sort of a, garden bloom, flower shop, first bloom that has a heavy hit of greens or ivy to really smell like freshly cut flowers, or just a garden you're walking through that has, first morning dew on the greens, on all the leaves. I don't really get much of that angle from here. I wouldn't have called it out. But what I do get is that sort of vanilla blossom. So blossom is not gonna be the exact same as, the vanilla that is more of the edible gourmand vanilla. There's a bit more of a floral edge to this, though the vanilla orchid is scentless. So I think this is a bit of probably a fantasy note, vanilla blossom. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. Either way, it is a powdery, fluffy, almost like a heliotrope kind of fluffy cloud-like blossom that balances probably like a 60-40, 60% lilac, 40% that fluffy, almost meringue-like, more cloud-like vanilla. This does lean more perfume-like than their fresh cut lilacs, which does lean more botanical straightforward, which I do typically prefer, but it's something new, it's something different, new to me. And I know it is a fan favorite. I think Kent from the Candle Channel is a big fan of this one. It's nice. It's a good early spring floral, for sure. Then we'll move over to, let's see, we got two more here. First up from the Euphoria Ombre collection is white t-shirt. Also in this collection is raspberry whipped vanilla, radiant sky, kiwi passion fruit, and pineapple mango. Again, when I'm talking about the lack of cohesion, so those fragrances are a mix of mostly returning mass appeal favorites. So this one is new-ish. I think maybe this was in a single wick last year, tested a bit, but I think this may be the first time it's a 3-wick. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then you have raspberry whipped vanilla, which has been around fairly frequently. It comes out repackaged as different things. It was in the Neutrals collection last year. It just is kind of always there, and I don't think it's that great. And then Radiant Sky is their new body care fragrance, which they've also put into the home fragrance form. Kiwi passion fruit, very, very, very summer. Not a big fan of it. Aloha kiwi passion fruit, typically. It's fine, but I've never purchased it other than when they did the blends version of it at Candle Day 2022. And then pineapple mango is old Slacken & Co. pineapple mango. I've purchased it before, very been there, done that. Very, again, mass appeal, pineapple and mango. I like both of those notes, more so mango than pineapple, but it just doesn't appeal to me at this point. It's just too straightforward and frankly kind of boring, I think. So this collection, again, it's really just about like, hey, let's get 5 fragrances that have, different colors, like a green one, a pink one, a yellow one, a blue one, whatever, it's fine. So notes on this one: crisp pear, lavender cloud, and soft cedarwood. Again, a lot more going on in there than that, but let me get my nose on it. This is nice. I think I like this. This is one that I'll really have to see how it burns and how it comes out burning, because I'm not the biggest fan of laundry fragrances in general. So I talked about this a bit in some recent videos where laundry fragrances are kind of all the rage at Bath & Body Works and probably at some other brands as well. So you have, your fresh cotton, your crisp linen, your white t-shirt, your clean t-shirt, your laundry day, your laundry room, your white t-shirt, all of that kind of mix and match all the different nouns and adjectives to get whatever from the fragrances. Sometimes they lean truly a conceptual blend that is refreshing, either spa-like or just a very clean home, like the old Slacken & Co. Fresh Cotton, which I love. That is really strong. They still have that in Wallflowers. Really, really, really enjoy that one. That one doesn't smell like laundry detergent. I don't really like the ones that smell like you're sniffing Tide or Gain or Febreze. That for me is very much cleaner in a way. So the same way that a lot of folks don't like, a kitchen lemon because it smells like cleaner, I actually do like a lot of kitchen lemon citrus because it smells like citrus. But if it's smelling like, an artificially scented laundry detergent, that to me just doesn't evoke a great feeling. My laundry, I'd rather it not have much of a scent to it because I will fragrance it with, with whatever parfum or cologne I use. So all that to say, I'm not the biggest fan of candles in that area, though there are some good ones and I'm certainly willing to try. And I do like this one. I think, again, to reference Kent from the Candle Channel, he mentioned that this kind of seemed like the furthest away from sort of the traditional laundry detergent candle, and I would tend to agree with that. It certainly is in that family. But for me, I almost want to do an in-depth sniff comparison review on this one because there's a lot going on here beyond just pear, lavender, and cedarwood. But I'm intrigued because I would almost think maybe it's more pear blossom because there's powderiness to this. There's a sweetness, there's an airiness to this. There could be some sort of, I think is some sort of citrus in the background there, whether it's a bergamot or maybe something lighter like a yuzu or something. Slightly bitter, but very, very light and fresh and sweet. Could be even lemon. Lavender cloud, it's not immediately pulling lavender to me, which is fine, but some of the powder could be from that. Really hard to say. And cedarwood, boy, if there's cedarwood, that is a thin veneer of cedarwood in there. I don't get a lot of cedarwood depth in this. Nothing really resinous. What's interesting with this one is, and if you have this candle, go grab it. I want you to sniff it and tell me if you get this, because when I sniff this, sometimes I get what smells like bubblegum, like Bazooka Joe bubblegum fragrance or the bubblegum candle from years ago. Not entirely, and not on every sniff. It's a weird thing where it's almost like all of those memes where it's like, is this dress green and black or is it green and gray? And for me, this candle's kind of like that. Well, I sniffed it and I caught that whiff and I was like, oh, what is that? But then I didn't notice it again. But if I smell this and think bubblegum, it kind of smells like a powdery, sweet bubblegum. Not just the bubblegum, other stuff going on here, but as if there's like a bubblegum note in it. It's not overpowering, and it's just one of those notes that I think kind of, whatever, there's something here that can trick you, whether it's, a pear or pear nectar, I don't know. But there's something in here, or just, limonene or some fragrance terpene that is a shared, cross note within, a sort of candy bubblegum accord. But there is something in this that is bubblegum-esque, but not overly candy sweet and cloying. So it's an interesting one. I really want to see what it's like burning. And then we move on to what is perhaps the strangest collection for me, which is the Soulflower Intentions or Scent Your Intentions collection. This is the Blush, Geranium, and Fern. And also in this collection is Palo Santo, Lavender Vetiver, and Vanilla and Peach Tea. Really strange. So if this is supposed to be, set your intentions, each one of these has a small little phrase in here. This one says, connect to kindness and open your mind to compassion and love for yourself. Each of these has an intention that you're supposed to think of before you, light the candle and sit in that. Aromatherapy, I'm into it. I like it. That's great. But it's just the most random 4 fragrances. Palo Santo, okay, that works. That is used over centuries, millennia for, connection to spirit sort of thing. The geranium, maybe, sure. The lavender vetiver, okay, it's at least sort of a botanical aromatherapeutic flower and root. But then vanilla and peach tea, like that's a fragrance that could have appeared literally in any of the collections that I've talked about already. It could have been in, or just like a White Barn core. There's just no reason, other than it being tea, but that is such a stretch in my opinion, for it to be in this sort of mindful, setting intentions sort of mind, body, spirit collection. Just strange to me. Each of them has a different sort of embossed, very simple wellness, spa, kind of new age imagery for one of the notes in the candle and the intention there. What I find strange and just frankly ridiculous about this is these candles are priced at $29.95. Most of the others now for 2023 are $26.95. I think every once in a while there might be a $25.50 or $25.95. There's no reason for, frankly, branding, lid, fragrance, quality, different oils, elevated experience for these to be $3 more, other than them just kind of like edging up further and further on a specialty candle. But again, there's nothing specialty about this. There's Palo Santo that probably was clearanced out for $6 at the semi-annual sale. Lavender vetiver, not some amazing fragrance people are clamoring for to pay a ton of money for. Doesn't have a special lid. It just, to me, it feels like they're trying to be elevated, and perhaps they think the demographic that wants to go for setting your intentions, mindfulness, yoga, and juice cleanses will pay more. And they're probably right based on their research, because they're a billion-dollar company that does a lot of that research. But it's just, to me, ridiculous. It's not worth the extra $3. It should be whatever the regular candle price is. Yeah, it just bugs me. Bring out some amazing master perfumer blends, which maybe some of these could be, but put some cohesion behind it. Like, why is this connecting to kindness and compassion and love for myself? What does it have to do with geranium? Does geranium evoke that? Does that mean that? Okay, then tell me, but also don't bring back traditional core scents, though this one is not. This is new. And pretend that there's something more. The other thing I'll say is, and I'm not trying to like hate on Bath & Body Works. Obviously, I just spent like $100 there, right? But I would not be surprised if this is biting off the style and art direction of some other brand. Bath & Body Works over the years has been known to do that with many collections. So they kind of see, oh, this is popular, this is something more high-end, let's try to distill it down, make it mainstream, and make a buck off it. I wouldn't be shocked if sometimes someone finds a candle collection or candle company that has something very, very similar to this collection. But notes on this one: geranium petals, lush greenery, and calming musk. So the greenery, I'm assuming, is the fern. Funny, a lot of these have dewy greens. This has lush greenery, the geranium petals, and a calming musk. Okay. This is interesting. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It smells a little bit like musty, like standing water, frankly, a little bit. Now, geranium typically is a scent in fragrance that is going to be similar to rose with more of a lemony aspect to it and less of the powderiness that you get from a rose. And oftentimes a geranium note will have a nuanced green aromatic undertone. And that frankly could be what they're calling fern or the lush greens, whatever it might be. So this is a non-traditional floral. Geranium is one of those florals that, kind of like maybe iris or hyacinth, doesn't smell what most people think of flowers or floral fragrances to smell like. Either, you know, some edge to it, or it just brings more depth or nuance or green notes to a floral. Funnily enough, they don't mention tea in here, but I feel like I get more of a tea note in this than in some of the others, because there is an astringency, but could be from whatever greens are there. And the musk, there's a little bit of musk, I suppose. Not too intense, not very animalic, not super powdery, doesn't really choke you out. Yeah, this is just strange. I like that they're trying strange things again, but yeah, this is weird. It's slightly floral, herbal, a little dirty, not quite earthy, but kind of musty almost, like standing water, which doesn't sound appealing. It's not like a fresh, clean, sort of lemony vibe or very aquatic even. It's just weird. I'll have to get my nose on this and burn it and really see what I think of it. It's worth sniffing. And I'd love to hear what other folks think. If you love this or if you've burned this, I want to hear what you think about it. So that is it for the 7 3-wick candles. And then just very quickly, the one lone single wick I purchased, which actually the second time I got this, and I actually didn't purchase it. I used a BBW reward on this. This scent only comes in the single wick. I wish it would come in the 3-wick, because really this is just the Cafe Paris plus cinnamon spiced vanilla candle from the Blends collection. What was it, last summer? And now it's Cafe in Venice. They're moving throughout Western Europe. And with Paris Cafe, I've never been a fan of it because it's just a little too burnt roasted, leans a bit artificial, like that brioche smells like burnt brioche to me. But I do love a coffee fragrance. And this gives me enough of the coffee, but brings in the softness of the cinnamon spice vanilla. I really enjoy it. It's a good, like, you know, I'm having my coffee in the morning, throw this on, light it just to start the day. I wish it wasn't a 3-wick. Would I have purchased the 3-wick? Definitely. Would I have purchased a single wick? No, but with a reward, okay, sure, I'll take it. I'll light one, you know, in my office, or maybe 2 anywhere else, because the throw is not going to be anything to write home about on this, but free is free. So that is the Cafe in Venice. So that is it for today's haul and first impressions, or some second and third impressions in some cases, review here. Let me know what candles you've purchased from here, what you agree with, what you disagree with. I'd love to hear all of it. And until next time, take care.